cool. So this is all about you and your journey in music and starting Timid the Brave and how you guys got to where you are now. Well, let's start with you, Tim. Were you born and raised in Ontario as well?
No, I wasn't. I was born in Vancouver, and grew up a little bit in northern BC, like this little remote logging town up there, where my dad got a teaching job, and then moved to southern Alberta, just south of Calgary.
Okay.
So about 45 minutes from the American border there. And then I moved out to Hamilton to go to university, and have just stuck around since then. So that was 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I just kind of fell in love with the city, made a lot of good friends, and had to make the call between, moving home and being around my family who's all still out in Alberta, or staying here and staying with this group of friends, and giving music a shot, which is something I didn't feel like I could do in southern Alberta. There's just not really the scene for it there. So
Right on, right on. And how did you get into music?
um yeah, I mean, I guess you go as far back as I grew up in church singing,
Mhm.
hymns to organ music, way back when I was a kid, and uh, just kind of, yeah, grew up always singing on Sundays. And I remember, as I was thinking about doing this podcast, a very vivid memory came back of sitting in my parents' living room with my headphones on, just like singing my heart out on the couch, probably annoying all my siblings to death. But they let me do it. So yeah, I always love singing. I don't really have musicians in my family. My dad's a good singer, but there's no real songwriters or musicians beyond that. Um, yeah, so largely church. And then when I was in high school, I joined the high school choir.
Mhm.
So I was singing bass in the choir, and um, my brother around that time started a little pop punk band, and we'd record demos in my parents' church, just like plugging as many mics as we could to the little tape recorder, and record it live to tape on there. And um, I wanted to be in the band. It was my brother and his friends, and I was basically saying like, "Hey, can I do something?" And he said, "Well, if you buy this little $250 PV bass guitar set from probably Walmart, I think is where I got it. Uh,
Uh-huh.
we need a bass guitarist. So if you can learn how to, hit a whole note every
Sure.
chord change, and
Follow
then
follow the guitar chords.
yeah, yeah, then you can be in the band." So that was my first experience trying to actually play original music. Um, yeah, and from there, I moved out here to go to school, and um, tried to join the choir at the university I was at.
Uh-huh.
And basically the choir director, Gareth knows him as well, was a bit of a cruel man. And I auditioned, and he said, "You're good enough. We'll get you there." And in the very first practice, singing the very first song, I'm trying to follow along and hit the notes, and he keeps stopping to say like, "Hey, someone's scooping. Like, who?
Oh.
Which of you is scooping?" And I was like, "I don't know what scooping is." So it basically became this really uncomfortable like 5 minutes where he kept stopping the music and like singling me out, and I was just like,
Done
I
with
love
it.
music. I don't love this.
Right, right, right,
Um,
right. So,
yeah.
okay, so you didn't go to university to pursue music, so to speak.
No, I actually I studied English,
Okay.
literature, so a little bit of history as well. Um, but while I was there, I started just kind of accidentally writing my own songs. I would learn cover songs, and just kind of figured out that I wanted to write my own. So I think studying English helped, studying
Mhm.
poetry and just the way words work. I've always been most concerned about lyrics more than anything else. So it was kind of a natural fit. I had a beat up old acoustic guitar, and just started writing and playing at the little coffee house at school. And um, yeah, a friend of mine who's a very good musician heard some of my songs and thought, "Hey, let's start a band together." And she was a songwriter as well. So we just basically, when I graduated university there,
Mhm.
I well, kind of a long about story, but I went on this pilgrimage, the Camino de Santiago. Don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
It's in Spain, and basically the traditional route runs from like the border of France all the way to almost the west coast of Spain.
Wow.
So I graduated, and I was kind of wondering, what's next. I didn't have a clearly defined career path, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, you should go walk this pilgrimage. It'll take you a month. Might be a good idea to clear your head, figure out what you want to do next." And I rather foolishly decided to bring an acoustic guitar with me. So I had one of those backpack cases, jammed clothes in wherever I could, jammed a couple books in, and set out with a friend of mine. And just along the way, just started writing more. Something about walking for 9 hours a day clears your head, and I just started having lyrics pop into my head, and I'd stop at whatever hostel we ended up at in the evening, and I'd play guitar for a couple hours. And I just had a lot of people during that time stop me, people I'd met along the way, from all different countries, be like, "Hey, like you've got something, you should give this a shot, like you should really pursue this seriously." So I took that advice, and I came home and decided, I'm gonna start a band, and I'm gonna actually try and make a living doing this.
Right on. And that's so Gareth, when did you come into the picture? Was that around that first record or that self-titled record, or?
Yeah, when I came into the picture, I'd say yeah.
Okay.
I remember Tim was in a band before the Timid the Brave product took off, called Brookie, and I remember like way back in the day at the same school, Tim, we had sort of met, and him asking me if I knew how to get access to the timpanis kind of thing. And that was like first like, this guy's doing music kind of. Years later, he got back from Spain and was working on the self-titled. And at that point, we didn't know each other super well. But I had done some work with Scott, who owns and runs Other Songs Records, who Tim signed to, and Scott and Tim reached out and asked if I could do violin. So I did a day of violin stuff for that first record, and that was it really. That's all.
Oh, okay.
But then we just became buds and hung out more and more. And then by the time the second record came around, it was just kind of like, the three of us, Scott, Tim, and I, were always kind of in the studio doing everything.
Okay.
And throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what stuck, sort of thing. And in that time, somewhere along the way, I don't really know when, I just started playing with Tim, and just kind of, whether it was full band or just the two of us kind of thing.
Right on.
Tim does every now and then, does the solo stuff too. He can hold his own for sure.
Well, how did you get into music? First tell me where you were born and raised. Did you guys grow up in the same area?
No, I'm from here, really.
Okay.
Not far from Hamilton. I was born. I've been here for over 10 years now. Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day a little bit in a different way. I was watching a Chris Thiele masterclass, and he was talking about knowing what your musical true north is. Like, what was the music that turned you on to music? Can you remember like the kind of in those turbulent, intense hormonal years that you just love something so much, when you're young? And it's hard for me to answer because I was raised. I'm third of four boys. All of us played either violin and piano or cello and piano. It was kind of a weird Von Trappy kind of thing. And my mom was a music teacher at a local juvenile detention center, really high school music though, curriculum. And Dad had grown up playing piano as well. Kind of, my parents were of that generation and of that kind of culture where all the kids learned piano.
Sure.
We all did too. So Mom taught us piano, and we got string lessons outside of the house from the age of like 4. We started, kind of thing.
Wow.
And then in school, music was the class. It was music and English that I always did well in, and I just bunked everything else because I didn't care. And that's
Right.
What would my musical true north be? And I was thinking probably, I remember like right around the time LimeWire was a thing.
Okay. Yeah. Like a little
Really,
after the Napster days.
exactly. Like Napster was like, I think we had just got internet really when Napster was blowing up, and then,
Sure.
and then LimeWire came along, and I was like probably 11 through 13 in there.
Okay.
And I became obsessed with the Beatles. I just got everything the Beatles and Paul McCartney had ever done. And it was great because my dad had been, and when he was my age, kind of thing. So there was this kind of renaissance for him. And I remember the first CD I bought ever was Abbey Road,
Oh
followed
wow.
quickly by Magical Mystery Tour. I got money for my birthday and went to like Best Buy or something. But so like the Beatles were like the big thing. But that by all means, that's not to say that like I loved everything at that point, you know. Like I had favorite Bach pieces and I had, you know, favorite, you know, punk things from the day, you know, like emo stuff that was big at the time.
Right.
And then kind of through similar to Tim, a lot of the cutting of my teeth happened at church. I also grew up in the church, and so like, you know, piano and violin are only so useful in a young people crowd, you know, back in the
Right.
early 2000s. So I kind of just picked up guitar along the way, and then that kind of became my main thing throughout all high school. And that's when I started writing my own songs too. I got my own kind of outfit aside from Tim, but so I was writing songs then too, and then came time at the end of high school to go to, you know, secondary education, and I I thought, well, what can I do? I don't have any training on guitar. Violin wouldn't be that useful necessarily to be, at least for what I have in mind, to be, you know, adept in. So I thought I'll do piano. So I ended up going to a college. In Canada, I think it's a bit different from the States. We have college and university, and there's a little bit of a hierarchy thing, a little bit of a tiered thing. I think
Yeah.
have as college, you'd have as a community college, maybe. I think that's the way I've understood it before.
Yeah, like university for you guys is like isn't it like right out of high school, or it's like the last 2 years of high school or something?
So high school is its own thing, and then out of high school you can go to colleges or universities, like for post-secondary. This is really
Okay.
oversimplified, but colleges would be like much more hands-on, practical trades kind of thing, and universities like academia, kind of if you want to go the like, you know, master's PhD route sort of thing.
Got it. Yeah, so that's more, that makes sense. Yeah, because we have, I mean, I think we still have trade schools. There's not a whole lot of it, man. They've kind of
Right.
cut really back on that stuff here in the
Sure.
States.
That's an oversimplification, even so. But out of high school, I ended up taking a year off and then going to a college for classical piano,
Okay.
and loving that. And then also just kind of wanting more stimulation. So I went to the university route as well. But piano kind of became the main thing without me noticing it, really. That kind of just, and it's an ironic thing too, because you'd think that, you know, piano is the one instrument that most people learn growing up. And yet you find yourself at this point in every band needs a piano player kind of thing, and no one plays piano. It's weird. It's really weird.
Right. It's like one of those things that a lot of kids are put into as, you know, super young, and then they just, you know, drop it, or, you know, or they play it for a couple of years. That's my biggest regret. My dad plays, and my sister's 11 years younger than me. And back on the Beatles thing, I grew up on the Beatles. My sister's name is Abby, off the Abbey Road record that you know, own.
Is your name Road?
No, I wish so, but I would be first, so I would have been Abby.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, but I didn't have an interest in it. I had an interest in guitar years later, but I'm not even very good at that. But that's one of my biggest regrets, is like they can sit down and play. They're not like beyond talented by any means, but they can play and they can read music, and it's something I'm always envious of.
Totally. I get it, man. I get it. Piano really is like, it is the instrument that everyone should learn, because you just get such a nice visual representation of harmony and theory. You can just picture it in your head, like, because it's right there in front of your eyes, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But yeah, basically music, I was just raised in it, you know, like it's hard to remember how I got into it, because it was kind of just the water I was swimming in from a young age.
God, yeah, definitely. And then were you in bands and stuff going into university?
Yeah, I was in a band. So this is kind of how I got into the Other Songs family.
Okay.
I was in a band called the Good Hunters, and we're long dissolved now. Only one record, and there was a second record that should have happened because it was going to be better. But it was like a folk rock band, you know, and signed at the same time as Tim was to Other Songs. Around the same time. And so I was in that band, and then I've always just kind of been a gun for hire around, you know, I'll just kind of play with people when they need someone. But then about 2017, I finally kind of just took the leap and started putting my own stuff out. So under my own name, Gareth Inkster, there's stuff, and I'm kind of perpetually working on stuff too. I'm in a couple other bands now. But...
Very cool. And then are you in, because Tim was saying that you kind of joined as like an additional player, like kind of the like record? Were you into the recording side of things, or like how did that kind of
Yeah.
play
So
into it?
for this, for I'll answer that by way of kind of describing my involvement with Tim. So the first record with Tim was just violin. The second record, Firesale, it was Tim and Scott and me kind of there as like this third wheel that would do a lot of the instruments and stuff, you know. And now for this third LP, Vuja Day, we recorded all of it. Like I ran the sessions recording all of it back in July. So recording it and then producing it, kind of having ideas with Tim, like what if we try this, what if we try that kind of thing, bouncing stuff off each other. I played a bunch of the instruments too, and now I'm also mixing it, and Scott will master it. But
Wow.
that just kind of came about because I wanted to do my own stuff, but it's kind of real tough when, you know, music is not going to pay well, right?
Sure.
Unless you kind of win the jackpot. Or if you have like a really robust touring regime, if you have like, unless the stuff is really in place, it's not a cash cow. It's not even, it's seldom cash.
Right. Right.
And for that reason, it's tough to kind of justify, or not even justify, but just pragmatically, it's tough to find the money to put into recording and to put into, you know, like, unless you got all your ducks in a row, it's going to be a lot of studio hours you'll have to pay for, a lot of this, a lot of that. And so kind of over the past 5 years or so, maybe past 4 years or so, I've kind of just slowly been gathering gear and ability and just getting better at that whole world, you know. I kind of, after hiring at a studio for my first record, I decided to learn it myself, and I just kind of set a rule for myself that anything worth doing is worth doing badly if the alternative is not doing it at all. And so I just kind of started recording songs and putting them out, and they're looking back on them now, I kind of can't help but wince a bit, because I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have done that now, I wouldn't have done that now. Like, they're not mixed to perfection necessarily, right?
Sure.
But they're out and they exist, and if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here. And so Tim is now reaping the benefit of my own kind of sacrificing my own stuff. It's not the best quality, and now here I am at a much better level, and I'm working on his stuff.
Yeah,
Very
totally. I caught you at a good time.
You did.
Well, back to you, Tim, real quick. So, on that first record that you put out, the self-titled, was that something like once it was out, did you tour it? Like, tell me a little bit about the process after you had the record out.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd maybe go back even to the band I had before that. We had like scheduled a tour across Canada. We had serious plans of like working pretty hard at that. But then I got laryngitis right before we were going to go on that tour, so we had to scrap the whole tour. And then shortly after that, we realized there were some pretty big creative differences between me and the other songwriter in the group. I wanted to go like the folk singer-songwriter route. She was more into kind of experimental pop. So the band kind of dissolved, and I was left with a bunch of songs that I'd written, thinking like, what can I do with these? And Scott basically said, well, let's just get together on a weekend, record it all pretty bare bones. We'll try record it from a Friday to a Sunday, see what happens. And we got Gareth in for that. We got a couple other friends in for that, and it turned out really well. But right around that time, I was also kind of thinking like, man, it's tough to have debt from university. I was working kind of part-time at coffee shops and doing a bit of tree planting in the summers to make ends meet and to fund it. So we didn't tour it. We did like little Southern Ontario weekend tours, you know, like go to Toronto, go to Guelph, go to London, which is an hour west of here. So we played it a fair bit. But I also got a little bit tired of being another guy on stage with an acoustic guitar, you know, like it's pretty easy to tune that out. So I think at that point, I hit the brakes a little bit and was just like, I don't know if I really want to pursue this full time. I think it's okay if it's somewhere between a hobby and a career. You know, I can try and make money at it. I can do it well, but I don't know if it's going to be my main gig.
Sure.
So,
And then so once that once the next record came out, was it, I mean, there's like 5 years in between, right? I mean,
yeah.
so is that what you were doing? Like just trying to gain, like, rebuild, like replenish your bank account, so to speak, to pay for the next record? Like, tell me, what was the gap there?
Yeah, basically that. I mean, I was working a full-time job. I was doing a couple of writing internships. I thought for a while I might want to get into journalism, so I pursued that for a couple of years. Ironically, also not a great financial endeavor necessarily. So I did that for a bit. I worked in admissions at the university I went to, like traveling around, trying to convince high school students to go to the school. Did that for a couple of years. So, and then right during that time is when I released Firesale.
We were playing shows throughout that whole.
Yeah, for sure. It's not like I checked out. I just
Sure.
became a bit more of like a weekend warrior,
Got you.
working my 9 to 5, but still playing shows whenever I could.
Got it. Okay.
And workshopping the new songs throughout there,
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think I realized with Firesale that like I wasn't intentionally putting the kind of effort I was into my career in music as when I released the self-titled, but I found I was still I felt the need to still be writing songs, So if I'm writing songs, well, I might as well record them. So then we have enough songs for a record, so we put the record out, and the record did pretty well. There was one single that kind of blew up on Spotify, which was good for me, paid the rent for a few months. And then that gets you thinking too, well, okay, if that can happen once when I'm not fully focused on it, maybe if I fully focus on it again, it could take off. So heading into this record, I was kind of thinking, well, I'm gonna give it another shot. I'm gonna, do it right, get Gareth to record it, get a good drummer in, get a good bassist in, some friends of mine. So we did that. We were pretty fortunate. We were living together at the time with some other friends. So when COVID hit, I just kind of thought, well, now's a good time to record. We got nothing else going on.
Yeah. I was going to see where you guys were at when that all happened.
Yeah. We, our living situation was pretty unique because we lived right next to a church that we had access to, an old Anglican church. So we recorded the record in there. We could get the drummer and the bassist in and have everyone distanced enough that it was safe to do.
Sure.
So it was pretty fortunate. It worked out really well that way. But then it was also like, okay, right when I'm thinking maybe I'm going to give this another shot with music, everything kind of shuts down. And there hasn't been a live show in a year. So yeah.
So was the record complete then during, you guys recorded the whole album during quarantine? Yeah,
it needs the odd overdub here and there still, and Gareth was working on some of that over the past 6 weeks.
We don't have. I realize we don't have vocals on 50 yet as well.
Yeah. There's one song we need to record vocals on. But yeah, there's 10 songs. I'd say 6 of them are pretty much fully mixed.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then and then there are 4 that are left to do some touch-ups, but it should be done soon. We're putting another single out end of the month, April 30th, and then we got another one ready to go a couple weeks after that. So
very cool. Yeah, because we have one song off the record out so far, Saint Maria.
Yeah.
So tell me about that song. Why'd you choose that as the kind of first song in 4 or 5 years? Yeah.
I think one of the reasons is thematically, it's the best transition from some of my older stuff. I write a lot about, I've been thinking about this a lot because I need to write a band bio.
Which is always such a nuisance. Like, I hate writing about myself, especially even with the podcast. It's like, what do I have to say about myself? Writing about
yourself in the third person, and the last name.
Right, exactly. Like, Tim is blah blah blah. Even like LinkedIn bios, all that stuff. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, totally. It's like writing about myself. Like Celis writes introspective folk songs. It just makes me want to gag.
Right.
but I have been thinking about like, well, what's my focus? I think one of the things that has stayed with me through all the songs I write, I tend to write, I mean, people write for all sorts of reasons. They're love songs or political songs or dance pop, you know, like there's all sorts of reasons to write. For myself, I found that I write mostly as like therapy. Like when I'm going through something that, you know, I need to kind of work through on a personal level. That's when I find writing to be the easiest and the most, the songs just come then. So I think I've written a lot about change, about, you know, change in relationships, you know, living so far away from my family, change in my faith and my understanding of like my upbringing and what I believe now. So I think Saint Maria really captures that in terms of it being a song about like being at a pivotal moment in my life and feeling like I need some kind of direction or guidance. And maybe that's going to come from God, or maybe it's going to be some kind of natural sign. Like the year that I wrote it, it was super, super warm in November here, like 20 degrees, which is bizarre. Doesn't happen.
That's Celsius, by the way.
Yeah,
Celsius.
I was gonna say. I figured that was Celsius because I'm like 24 degrees. That is freezing.
We're gonna translate that. I don't know what that would be in Fahrenheit, but
like
it was warm.
70. It's like got to be in the 80s. What is it? Like 32 degrees warmer or something.
Multiply
like that?
by something and then add 37 or something like that. I always forget.
Yeah.
While you're talking, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Whatever the case, it was warm enough that the rose bush in our backyard, that normally would, you know, go dormant in November, was blooming again. It had this like weird second bloom in the fall, and I just looked at that and thought like, maybe this is a sign that like. And then I started thinking, well, what are other examples of, you know, things in the natural world, or if you're religious or spiritual, like where would you find confirmation that the direction you're going is the right direction?
Tim texted Scott and I actually asking for like, what are some ideas about things you might see that could be indicative? Like if you, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, you know, like on the line things.
Yeah. It's 75.2 degrees if you guys are curious.
There we go.
And what is that in Celsius?
24.
So yeah, that this song just felt like a good bridge between some of the songs on Firesale and then some of the new songs that I'm working on. So
very cool. And how do you guys feel about like putting this out during? I mean, we're all still pretty stuck. That being said, though, I don't know how it is in Canada right now, but here in the States, they have announced some big festivals, Outside Lands in San Francisco, Bonnaroo here in Tennessee, and Ride Fest in Chicago. Like you know, they're ready to gather. I would think up to about 100,000 people in one area. Like that must be pretty, you know, like encouraging. I guess I don't know. I can't think of the word at this point, but like hopeful.
We're a bit behind you at this point. We I think we just per capita surpassed you for daily infection rate. Our vaccine distribution has been kind of bungled. It's weird because usually we're like really kind of cocky about our healthcare and about our, you know, all the stuff that we get for free and efficiently and all that sort of thing.
Sure. And the how much they embrace music there is insane. Like, just everything about it.
So it's been, I mean, Ontario is its own special case in a bit too, because Ontario is kind of the majority of Canada lives here, you know, and I don't know if that's quite true, but it's the most populous province.
Yeah, careful, you're gonna piss off some West Coasters.
I know. Everyone in Canada loves to hate Ontario.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and Ontario doesn't. Being born and raised here, I love the rest of Canada. I don't know what it's about, but
and you guys have the best national anthem. I always have to tell my fellow Canadians.
It's a bit contentious these days, but I think the USSR had the best. Well, the Russian national anthem still the most beautiful national anthem.
Really, I'm not too familiar, but whenever whenever I hear "Oh Canada," I'm like, you guys yours is so much better than ours.
The Whitney Houston rendition of the Star Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl back in the early '90s is the best rendition of any national anthem ever. It's incredible.
I'll have to go back and listen to it.
I listen to that just for fun still.
It's in your like Spotify playlist.
You think you're joking?
You're seeing Garrett's nerdier side here. Like, I don't know that I've met anyone who thinks that the USSR national anthem is worth a listen.
The
Top 5 on his
anthem is moving.
You look at your Spotify playback, the most songs of the year you've listened to, that Russian national anthem, like #1.
Socialist propaganda.
Oh man.
The question was about how we're doing for festivals and this sort of thing.
Sure.
We're pretty behind on that front, I think. Yeah, it's gonna be some time yet. I saw like some American, like Dawes, they started I think they tentatively booked a show for the fall in Vancouver, which surprises me a bit. But like I don't see how we could be ready by then, but we'll see.
Yeah, I know bands here in the States are booking tours for November, up in, November, December, but I don't know. I haven't really paid much attention to like where, some of the shows are. I've seen where some of them, but I haven't noticed really the Canadian dates.
It's tough to keep up to date when you kind of get weary of trying to relearn the new terms of things when it's just kind of, it's the turnover rate of what is most up to date keeps flipping so fast, like,
Right.
It'll be ready by then. No, it won't. It'll be ready by then. No, it won't. It'll be, like it's just kind of, it's tough to kind of keep on top of that.
Sure. So like with the release, is that kind of something that you were hesitant on, or no, just wanted to get it out?
I mean, I just want to get it out there. We'll play shows when we can. At this point though, it's like I've just learned this year to not make plans really. I mean, I got married in August, and
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It worked out really well because August in Canada was like things were most open then, so it turned out to be a pretty normal wedding, which is great. Good. But that whole process of just like trying to plan, is my family going to be allowed to come from Alberta? Are we going to be allowed to have 10 people or 50 people or 100 people? Like it was just constantly shifting. So we sent out like probably 5 rounds of wedding invites.
Like, you might be able to come. I'll let you know if you make the cut next time we send out the invite.
Yeah. So all my friends knew exactly where they ranked. Yeah. So I mean, I thinking of music and booking shows and stuff like that. I want to do it. I think it would be a lot of fun to put together a tour with Gareth, and I mean naturally he could play his own set, I could play my set, so we could book something together that would work out really well, I think. But yeah, at this point I don't know when that would be.
Sure.
I'm a teacher as well, so I teach high school English.
And cool.
I was really looking forward to the summer as being like, hey, I have the whole summer off paid, that's a great time to put a tour together. And
sure,
I don't think we'll be at that point yet, so
okay. Well, hopefully sooner than later. And thank you guys so much for hanging out and chatting with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great, man.
I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. Do you guys I want to get an answer from both of you. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Nice. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that comes to mind, I'm reading this book by Jeff Tweedy right now called How to Write One Song.
Oh, I've heard of this book. I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've read it once. I keep going back for little snippets, but he just talks about how anyone you've heard of in music, you've heard of them because they're hardworking. So he talks about how like Beyonce is probably the hardest working musician on the planet. And he just says like, if you want to do music as a career, you have to treat it like a 9-to-5 job. Go to work every day, write a song every day, record something every day, be on the phone with booking reps at clubs, and try and figure out it's a grind. You need to be willing to do the work to get results, basically, which is like totally anti the romantic artist, singer, songwriter in me, who wants to just like play my songs and the world will hear them and love it. It's just like, no, you have to go to work every day. So I think that's probably the big one.
I love that. What about you, Gareth?
Yeah, That's hard to answer. I think I have an answer though. I'm going to answer from experience. Tim's totally right. Well, Jeff Tweedy's totally right. Tim is right to agree with him. You know, and that's you encounter that same sort of pearl of wisdom across the arts too. You know, across creative types. You know, Tchaikovsky in music said, you know, you have to put the hours of practice in so that when the muse shows up, you know how to address it. You know how to actually do it. That sort of thing is, you know, you know, is it Stephen King who kind of proverbially writes 10 pages a day or something like that, no matter what? Like you just do it, right? You just
Yeah, that's something about waking up. He like wakes up in the morning and writes 10 pages no matter
right?
what or something
There's
like
this
that.
kind of, it's got to be true, you know, because it works across. This is gonna sound like it's like the antithetical to that, and it's not at all. I think the wisdom is finding how to hold the two together, and that would be, remember why you're doing it. I say that because I think it's very easy to get lost in the weeds. So I also have my own music stuff, my own songs that I write, trying to make it work. You know, I'm a bit more, I don't know if you call it foolish or romantic or dreamer, in that like I still kind of I let myself live in the illusion that maybe it's gonna work, you know, and I just kind of maintain that possibility so that you can kind of keep the carrot dangling in front of you, you know.
Sure.
But with that, it can very easily kind of turn into desperation, where you just do stuff, you know, and just hope that it generates something. And looking back on my catalog, there are a couple songs there where I'm kind of like, why did I release that? Like, why did I put that out? Why did I spend, you know, weeks or months on that? I don't really like that, you know. I know that other people do. I know that other people think it's good, and so sure, whatever, you know. But really, it doesn't actually address the heart of why I'm doing this. And so if I'm gonna, you know, exhaust myself on a project and hold my nose and tweet about it or put Instagram posts about it, trying to do self-promotion and do all the work stuff that is so necessary, that Jeff Tweedy was mentioning, that Tim was talking about. If I'm going to do that, then there's got to be a really resilient, really robust sense of purpose in it. Like I better believe what I'm doing, you know, I better love the product that I'm making. Otherwise, I'm just exhausting myself and embarrassing myself with these posts and doing all this sort of thing for something I don't actually believe in. You know, if you believe in it, then whether or not it succeeds, you did something that you believe in, and it exists now. And it's just this testament to your, you know, pursuit of meaning. At least that's how I experience making music. But...